All right, what's up, everybody? Happy Tuesday. Thank you so much for joining us. Pushing the limits. Boy, do we have a busy show lined up for you today, and we have a lot to get to. NBA player was, we're going to get a little bit later on in the show. We're going to get away a little bit from Donald Trump and the war in Iran, but NBA player was released from the Chicago Bulls for making anti-gay statements, and why I think this is just typical of the right, where they all seem to make excuses to hide behind their bigotry, and say, well, it's my religion. So it's a big topic. We're going to get into that and take some calls on it a little bit later today. But of course, I was off for a week, and I said to Mr. Ron Filipkowski, I said, why don't you come on Tuesday instead of Monday? And he graciously agreed. Been a little while since we spoke, and it's always great to have the editor-in-chief at Midas Touch joining us on the program. Ron, it's good to see you, my friend. How are you?
Good. It's kind of a crazy news day if you like.
Ron, I think you're muted.
Oh,
because we don't hear you. Try that again. I don't know. Ron, are you there? Very, very strange. We don't hear Mr.
Is there we right go. Now?
Oh, I got you. There you go. We can't censor and silence you, Ron. Come on, you're too important. Good to see you.
It's a crazy news day if you like political gossip, because
yes,
there's all kinds of like wild gossipy stuff. By the way,
yes.
The news just broke. I'll tell you this, that Reuters just broke this. You know how they flew the Apache helicopter in Nashville over the No Kings protest, and then they did the flyby at Kid Rock's house?
Yes. Right.
And then the Army initially tried to claim that it was part of their routine flight pattern.
Right. Well, they said it was a coincidence. Yeah.
They just suspended the pilot, so.
Did they both? So there were two helicopters there, right, Ron?
Yeah.
Explain this to the listeners. Did they land at Kid Rock's estate? Is that what happened?
No, they like hovered. They obviously, it was weird because someone was filming it from inside his residence while he was outside waving to them. So obviously he either knew they were coming, or when they got there, someone else was in there, maybe his girlfriend or something, I don't know, was filming this, and then he posted it on social media.
Wow.
But first they flew over the No Kings protest in Nashville, which was pretty ominous, when you're protesting the government to have Black Hawk helicopters hover, do a flyby on your protest.
Right.
And then they flew over to Kid Rock's house, which is like on top of a mountain. And, just kind of hovered there, and they were waving, saluting, the whole thing. But, the fuel, especially right now for these things, is a lot of money. And so they obviously burned up a lot of money to kind of play games there.
Have they given out any public statement? I know this just happened, but is there any public statement from the White House? Or because obviously people lied. They lied to try to cover this up. Did they give an explanation as to why this pilot was suspended? Any explanation at all?
No, they just announced that they were suspended. I like to see them repay the taxpayers for the cost of the fuel at the very least, but most likely they'll just get a slap on the wrist, since it was, Kid Rock, the MAGA, Trump supporting icon. They had to do something, but most likely it won't be much,
Really sad. Before I get to really serious stuff, let's start off today and try something different and continue with the gossip. This Kristi Noem husband picture. Apparently, Kristi Noem's husband is a cross-dresser, and by the way, that's their personal stuff. But again, the Kristi Noem types are the ones that are against cross-dressers, as you know. This is a very bizarre story. First of all, how did these pictures get out there, and what do you make of this, Ron?
Yeah, I posted it on multiple, Daily Mail did the story, broke the story this morning, and I posted it on multiple social media platforms, and knew instantly that I was going to get pushback on Blue Sky, from the Virtue Signal Parade, who was going to have a problem with it by claiming, it's the usual thing, we don't care if somebody is a cross-dresser. That's not the point. The point is, she was a high-ranking government official in charge of some of the most sensitive agencies that monitor foreign governments, foreign terrorists. And she's been carrying on an affair with her chief of staff, who has made a lot of horrible decisions on FEMA disaster aid and many other things, which would not probably be happening if she didn't need to have her boyfriend with her 24/7 because her husband is apparently, according to Laura Loomer, who posted that this is like a well-known in the Trump world that her husband, Noem's husband, is gay and, is a closet gay person and has been hiding it. The problem is, as in the Daily Mail story, they quoted both a former CIA agent and a former Soviet KGB agent who both said, look, if the Daily Mail knew about this, you damn sure know the Chinese knew about it and the Russians knew about it. And they can use this for leverage to blackmail. And for all we know, that may have been happening. So it's like, for the people who say, oh, this is just, titillating gossip, not really. If it's like nobody, then it is. But we're talking about the Department of Homeland Security Secretary's husband here.
Yeah, I think it's an important story when you have these people in the higher ranks in those kinds of positions. I think it is a story. I completely agree with you. Speaking, though, of gossip and really strange stories, I never heard of middle-aged men going to Disney World by themselves. It's a little odd, a little strange. So Lindsey Graham, as you know, Ron, you've covered this. He's seen at Disney World by himself with some weird objects in his hands. And then when TMZ puts out this story and people are mocking Lindsey Graham because it's just strange behavior, then all of a sudden he immediately posts a picture of him with a weapon in his hand looking like Mr. Tough Guy. This is an embarrassing story for Lindsey Graham. What do you make of this in the timeline?
He did something like this once before in 2020 during the Black Lives Matter protests, where he posted a video showing himself shooting at an indoor gun range with an AR-15 with the caption basically like he said, if any of these BLM gangs are going to come to my neighborhood, I'm ready for you, and I've got my AR-15. So it's been like 6 years since that happened.
And Ron, there's the picture. Sorry to interrupt you. We're just showing the picture of Lindsey Graham at Disney World. What is that in his hand? What does he have in his hand?
He's got a Disney bubble wand. Yeah, which is like blows bubbles for like the kids. So you got this single 70-year-old man, clearly a closeted homosexual, which is fine. But, he should just come out with it and admit who he is and stop trying to play this charade game. But he's, a conservative Republican from South Carolina. So I guess he feels like he has to hide who he is from the voters. And he's also involved in a pretty tough primary fight right now against the former director of Heritage Foundation. So he's got some issues, but I'm sure he'll probably win. But anyway, so TMZ, by the way, that's another interesting development because TMZ just opened a DC office with a bunch of people, and they have vowed that they are going to follow around members of Congress, both parties. They've done this to Democrats, and they're gonna report on their private lives. And supposedly this has all of Washington in an uproar right now that TMZ has landed in DC, because I've talked to some congressional reporters, Capitol Hill reporters, and what they say is like, there's a lot of shit that goes down with these people that is covered up by the Capitol Hill media. They don't report on it. Right. A lot of the personal stuff, the affairs, the drinking, the drugs, a lot of the stuff that they do, they get away with because the political reporters don't report it. But TMZ is there to report all of that stuff now. So it's like,
I love it.
It's going, this is supposedly like sending shockwaves throughout DC, which is like, oh my God, the party's over, or they got to watch what they're doing.
But Ron, here's why I like it. First of all, I use the term hypocrisy all the time, right? Yeah. There are so many people on the far right that are anti-gay. There are people on the far right that talk about the 10 Commandments and this and that. And now I welcome TMZ, because now we're going to learn all these people that are preaching God and Jesus and religion and the Bible and thou shalt not do this and that are the ones that are doing it themselves more than the Democrats. That's what I think we're going to find out here.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure it will cut both ways. I'm sure they'll have some Democrats that they'll catch doing dumb things or silly things or whatever. But, they're going to start publishing like bikini photos and stuff from, that are from beach photos that are maybe unflattering of members of Congress. I mean, it could be, pretty wild, because this is all stuff that like has not been reported in the past.
Yeah.
by the political media because they don't want to do gossip. So this is an organization that is parachuting in there saying, we're unashamedly doing gossip. And this comes right on the heels of Daily Mail basically saying the same thing and setting up a major DC operation to do the same thing. So things are going to get a little crazy. But so Lindsey was getting ridiculed by Republicans and Democrats because he's achieved that rarefied status during the Iran war of being equally despised by both Republicans and Democrats. Like MAGA people hate Lindsey Graham. So they were all ridiculing him and, that he's a fluffer, he's, picking on him about his khakis, his Disney wand. So all of a sudden he just posts this photo of him trap shooting, I guess, what he claims, to try and make himself look like some kind of tough guy alpha male or something after getting caught with the Disney bubble wand.
It certainly is funny, and it will be interesting to see. And I think it's genius for TMZ to be doing this because it's going to get a lot of hits for them. They're going to make a lot of money doing it because we're so used to pop culture, the Justin Bieber, Kim Kardashian stuff. But what about our lawmakers, our elected? So I think this is actually going to be quite entertaining, and and you're right. They'll find some stuff on the left also. I'm not insinuating it's only going to be people on the right, but the people on the right that, as you know, always preach Jesus and God and don't do this and don't do that. Are the people that are doing it themselves.
If they just out the Republicans who are gay, that alone will be a tidal wave of controversy because there's more than Lindsey Graham.
You're right. I was just going to say that, Ron. There's more than Lindsey Graham, and we wouldn't even be talking about this if they weren't so anti-gay, right? I mean, that's right. Who cares what your sexuality is? But they're some of these people are so anti-gay. All right, I have to ask you a little bit about this Trump presidential library video that they released yesterday, since we're on the gossip stuff, because it's so insane, right? If he's not talking about the ballroom, he's trying to put his name on literally everything. What did you make of this 90-second video that they put out yesterday?
So Ron DeSantis gifted to Trump an extremely valuable piece of property in downtown Miami on the beach. I think it's worth $66 million. It's 3 acres for the Trump presidential library. Now, we all know that Trump doesn't read, doesn't have books, is not a library person. So everybody sort of was like, that's ridiculous. Then we also heard that the Qatari jet, which was donated, that Trump is supposedly, that what the contract says is after Trump leaves the White House, it becomes property of his presidential library. So everybody's like, Trump isn't going to have a presidential library. Then also part of the settlement that Trump reached with some media companies and some law firms when he was suing them, part of the money was supposed to be designated to go to the Trump presidential library. So they've got this extremely valuable piece of property and they're raising all this money and they got this jet that supposedly, so what we're all wondering, is this ever going to happen? Are they actually going to build a presidential library? Well, according to Eric Trump, who is now the trustee, the person who's in charge of building it, they put out this AI rendering, which basically just looks like a luxury high-rise condo building. So, and I was talking about it with the guys this morning. My prediction is what this is going to be is they're going to, the Trumps, they're not going to turn this into your typical presidential library where you go there for free and look at exhibits and books and all. No, what this is going to be is I predict the first 3 or 4 floors is going to be all these, like a museum to Trump, how great Trump is, photos, all this stuff. And then the rest of it, they're going to sell as condos. I guarantee you they're going to make money off this. They're going to sell the rest of the floors as a very expensive high-end condominiums. And they're going to make a lot of money off this, which they're not supposed to do. But I have no doubt in my mind that's where this is going.
Not surprising. We'll have to wait and see how this plays out. Before I get to Pete Hegseth's press conference earlier today, because I want to get your thoughts on that, Ron, do you make anything of this story that Tyler Robinson, the man who allegedly murdered Charlie Kirk, now there's stories coming out that apparently the bullet that was used was not the bullet that was the weapon that was owned by Tyler Robinson. And now this is kind of making headwaves, and now the conspiracy theorists are going crazy on this. I'm just wondering what you make of this story. If it is true, it does ask, a lot of questions as to what happened.
I think this was a Daily Mail story, if I'm not mistaken. That
it was
like that had a very misleading headline that caused everybody to go nuts. And so, no, I mean, look, I was a criminal defense lawyer for a long time, and this was a filing that was made by his defense team,
correct?
That they used that basically just said it's not. The conclusion of the forensics expert was it's not possible to determine whether this was the same bullet because the bullet was was destroyed. It was basically crushed. So there was no way to get a ballistic match between the bullet, bullet and the firearm. So what you're going to do as a defense attorney is say, hey, this report indicates it's possible this was not, the same bullet. You're going to do what any defense lawyer does.
Sure.
And naturally, Daily Mail seized upon that to try and feed into the conspiracies, which are occurring mostly on the right, mostly with MAGA, fueled by Candace Owens, Tucker Carlson, and others, that, this wasn't a lone gunman, that there were other people involved. There's certainly a lot of Charlie Kirk fans who believe that is true. And this story just kind of fuels that, but it seems kind of misleading to me.
When I first saw this story, I tend to agree with you on it. I think the defense is trying to come up with anything they can. You were an attorney for decades, and it certainly appears to me that there was only one person that was responsible for this, and his name is Tyler Robinson. But we'll have to wait and see what happens there. I wanted to ask you about this press conference earlier today with Pete Hegseth. I'm wondering, someone like yourself, who I have so much respect for, who served honorably, when you hear Pete Hegseth up there speaking on behalf of, it sounds to me, all people that are serving, that are fighting this war in Iran, and he basically making it sound like all these soldiers agree with the war, which I find to be unbelievably not true. What do you make of that? Because that's kind of the message that he's putting out there, that everybody that he talks to that's serving is so happy that we're fighting Iran, right?
So this is as old as the military itself. This goes back. I mean, this happened during the Revolutionary War. It happened during the Civil War. It happened a ton during Vietnam, World War II, etc. It's what like the rank and file junior troops would call a dog and pony show, which is a visiting dignitary, usually like a member of Congress or a member of the media or the president or some visiting general from another country or something, is going to come to your base. And, basically your commanding officer would pull everybody together and say, look, here's what's going to happen. He's going to ask you, how's everything? How you being treated? How's the morale? How's the chow? Everything. And you're going to tell him everything's great, sir. We love it. This is beautiful. Everything's wonderful. I mean, that's been going on in the military since the beginning of time. And that's why we call it a dog and pony show, because it's like a fake show. And I had these things happen when I was in the military where, they would come through and they would go, a reporter would go, what do you think about this operation? It's great, sir. We're motivated. We're excited. And then like the second the reporter walks away, you go, this is fucking bullshit. I mean, it happens all the time. So Hegseth claimed that he just took like a top secret trip over to the military bases to tour them to gauge, what the troops feel about this operation. Claimed that every single person he talked to said that they agreed with the war and they want to finish the mission and stay as long as it takes, and that they're having a great time. And my whole comment is like, look, if you're like some 19-year-old corporal serving overseas in Saudi, and you got the Secretary of Defense, your commanding officer, the commanding general, your sergeant major standing right there, and the Secretary of Defense says, how's everything going, corporal? What are you going to say?
Of course.
It sucks here. I miss my family. Right. You're not going to say that.
Of course not. Yeah.
I think give him bullshit,
right.
And he knows that, but, he's just using it for propaganda.
I mean, obviously, I agree with you, and it's just, making it sound like everybody that's serving right now is for this war. First of all, you can't even get Republicans all to come together and agree with this, let alone people that are serving, regardless of their political affiliation. I completely agree with you. So another big story that came out yesterday, right, is Donald Trump basically saying he's going to commit war crimes, right, when it comes to these facilities that he says he's going to target, which would include innocent civilians. And then Caroline Leavitt is asked this question yesterday in a press conference, and she basically defends it. Does Caroline Leavitt not know that the president of the United States is threatening literal war crimes? Is she not aware of it, or was she just told to defend it, or maybe a little bit of both? What do you make of that?
Yeah, I think that she doesn't understand. She questioned whether it was a war crime. And it's kind of complicated because this does involve the International Criminal Court and some organizations and some rules that we are not a part of. We haven't signed on to. I mean, we're a part of the Geneva Convention, but we're not a member of the International Criminal Court that prosecutes war crimes. So you could argue, and what they say is, like, if you attack civilian infrastructure, power plants, desalination plants, things that civilians need to survive. Because look, if you bomb a power plant, that could shut off power in a maternity hospital while someone's giving birth, while someone's on a ventilator or life support, or someone is in an operating room, and they turn off the power of a hospital. That's why it's a war crime. You can't target civilian infrastructure. And so the reporter just asked, what Trump has been threatening to do this repeatedly. He hasn't done it, but he keeps threatening to do it. And so people are pointing out, to Leavitt, a reporter was like, that's a war crime. Like, how can the president threaten war crimes, a U.S. president? And she basically ducked it and dodged it and basically denied it was a war crime. So it's shocking. We really haven't done anything like that since World War II, really, when we carpet bombed German cities and Japanese cities. We've moved away from doing that, and we realize that now that is not the way to go in warfare. And so many civilians were killed in World War II, and we didn't want to sort of replicate that again until now. And now it appears that, we have leaders of our country right now who don't see any distinction between minimizing harm to civilians and targeting military only.
What are your thoughts on where we're at right now? I'm just curious because we're a month into this war right now. As you know, the constant lies, it's only going to be a few weeks. Just last week, Donald Trump said the war is almost over. We're close to the end. And the same day, Pete Hegseth said this is just the beginning. It seems like nobody's on the same page here. Now we're talking about possible boots on the ground. MAGA are at arms with each other, as to this war and why it's happening, and the mixed messaging. Even people on Fox News are arguing with one another about this. What do you make of where we're at right now, a month into it? What has the Trump administration accomplished, if anything? Because it appears to me, Ron, that there is a new regime in there, not the kind of regime that the United States wants, perhaps a younger and more capable regime. So I'm not really sure, besides destruction and damage to facilities there, and a bunch of innocent civilians dying, and the Ayatollah and members of his administration regime that have died. Like, what really have we accomplished? That's what I'm still trying to understand.
So there's two possibilities, and I think that one of them is going to happen by this weekend, because I just don't think that Trump can politically afford, as his approval ratings continue to bottom out. And new polls came out today that he's at an all-time low approval rating again. They continue to drop week after week. I just don't think that they're going to be able to continue this indefinitely, and something's got to come to a head. Not only that, but we're running out of missiles. We're burning through our ordnance, like there's no tomorrow, and Congress has not passed any appropriation bill to replenish them. So something's got to give. One or two possibilities: you either look at what they're saying or you look at what they're doing. So if you look at what they're saying, Rubio yesterday made a subtle change in the war objectives. He initially said that one of the main objectives was to destroy their missile capabilities. He used those terms on March 6th. So that's 4 weeks ago. He said destroy missile capabilities. And they also said that they wanted to seize the uranium. They wanted to confiscate the uranium that's originally inside Iran. Now they're not talking about the uranium anymore. They're talking about wanting Iran to hand it over to them voluntarily as part of a peace agreement. And he changed the word from destroy their missile capabilities on March 6th to yesterday. He said on ABC, significantly degrade their missile capabilities. That's different than destroy. So if you listen to what they say, it seems like they're prepping to pull out because they've moved the goalposts on what their objectives are. They're not talking about regime change. They're not talking about even reopening the straits. Trump floated the idea that we may end the war without even reopening the Straits of Hormuz, which would be an absolute disaster. So if you listen to what they say, it sounds like they're getting ready to just declare victory and back out of this thing. But if you watch what they do, they're moving 40,000 ground troops, Marines, and they're preparing for a ground invasion of the islands and the coastal areas. So on the one hand, if they do the first thing, I think the general world public opinion in the United States public opinion is that this was a defeat for Trump and a disaster. If they do the second thing, his MAGA base is going to turn on him if he does a ground invasion. So the only way that this could work out well for Trump is if he does some kind of ground invasion that really pays off, opens the straits, seizes the uranium with minimal casualties, and it's all over within a week. But that would be the first time in history anything like that has ever happened if it does.
Yeah, and I don't think that's going to happen at all. I think that you did a great job of describing what's taking place there right now with the mixed messaging, and what they're saying and what they're actually doing are two completely different things. Ron, before I let you go, did we miss any gossip? Is there anything else going on today that you want to share with us?
No, I mean, the only other thing would be the Caroline Leavitt photo story. I don't know if you saw that one, but
I did not see that one. Tell me about that.
So apparently there was a photo taken of Caroline Leavitt from a low angle shot from a photographer, White House press photographer. I don't remember what media company, but it was a big one. And I guess it made her look heavy, like it caught like a double chin. And like, okay, that's fine. But apparently she was so upset about it that they just went to the mats and they threatened this guy's employer and they went crazy. It was one of the main, what's the main agency that
it was Reuters.
Yeah. That does the photographs was threatened them, and they actually pulled the photo. They pulled it down from their website and their pages because Caroline Leavitt was upset. And by the way, remember, this comes also after Pete Hegseth has banned photographers from the Pentagon because he didn't like a photo that was taken of him that he thought was unflattering. So it shows you how sensitive and fragile snowflakes they are, where they try and act like they're, rough, tough, and ridicule people on the left. But to me, like, they're the most sensitive snowflakes in politics are people in the MAGA movement.
I think you hit the nail on the head right there. That you're exactly right on that. And I think our producers put the picture up right now. This is the picture that Ron was referring to right there with, I guess you could call it a double chin. By the way, correct me if I'm wrong, Ron, but Caroline Leavitt is the same person who photoshops pictures of her husband who is like 100 years old. So
she makes him look younger. He's like 62 and there's like a 35-year age gap. So yeah, when you see pictures that she puts on Instagram of her husband, he looks like he's 28 years old.
Yeah, which is definitely not the case. Very Christian of her to do that, Ron. What do you got? Boy, there's a lot I'm sure you're working on today. There's a whole spectrum of things that you're writing on. What you got for your Substack for everybody today?
I feel like since a lot of that stuff is in my Substack, I had to find some heavy substantive news to sprinkle in there, which is normally what my Substack is. But with all this other sort of tabloidish stuff. You know, I had to put in some substantive stuff. So I got some stuff in there on the war and Trump's pardons and some polling that's out, which is just unbelievable. Democrats, just the polling around the country and race after race is just unbelievable. I mean, the poll in Alaska, the Alaska Senate race, which nobody thought we had a chance. Mary Peltola's winning that. Roy Cooper's pulled out to a huge lead in North Carolina. Ossoff, big lead in Georgia. These are seats that we thought we were going to lose, you know,
Right.
and winning big. And then you also have Graham Plattner opening up a huge lead over Janet Mills in the Democratic primary in Maine, where I'm at. So some of that stuff too.
Republicans are in a lot of trouble. America's in a lot of trouble for the next 2.5 years, but it seems like things are trending in the right direction as far as who people are going to be voting for. Let's hope that continues. Ron, one of the best in the business. Can't wait to read your Substack today. Good to see you, and we will catch up with you next week, my friend. And if there's any other double chin pictures of Caroline Leavitt, please be sure to let me know, okay?
Yeah, I will. I'll send them to you.
All right, Ron, good talking to you, my friend. Appreciate the time. Talk soon. All right, there you go, everybody. Love it. Ron Filipkowski, everybody. One of the best in the business. Love Ron. He is the best. There is a lot of gossip going on. There's certainly no question about that. But I do want to get to the clips that I promised that I would be playing for you, because certainly we have a lot to talk about, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, we do. So, Pete Hegseth did hold a press conference earlier today, if you are unaware. And as I mentioned with Ron Filipkowski a little bit earlier, Mr. Hegbreath is making the case basically that everybody that's fighting this war, every brave man and woman in uniform, is so happy that Donald Trump decided to go to war with Iran. Now, obviously, that's not true, but listen to Pete Hegbreath lie to the American people. Watch this.
I did the same with his boss, a colonel with a heart the size of Texas and a beautiful deployment mustache to match. I witnessed lethality. I met a junior airman as the sun was going down and a chill was setting on the tarmac, who, when asked what they needed, she simply looked up at me with a sly smile on her face and said, "More bombs, sir, and bigger bombs. We will happily oblige her."
Is there anybody, and I mean anybody, that believes a word that this moron says? Is there anybody that believes that story? So basically, Pete Hegbreath is telling us that every soldier he's spoken to overseas told him they support the war. That's a lie. And if some corporal is going to say something different to Secretary of Defense, the company commander and commanding general standing right there, listen, it's just insane that even they expect that somebody would go up to them and say something negative about this war. They wouldn't. It doesn't mean they support the war, obviously. I mean, this is a dog and pony show as old as the military, and Pete Hegseth is a complete embarrassment. Now, a reporter asked him after he lies, which they always do, how long until these objectives are achieved? And listen to the way he walks around this answer.
Thank you, Secretary Hegseth. A question for you and then a question for General Kane. You said we're a month into the Operation Epic Fury. How long until the objectives are achieved? And is there a scenario where a deal is struck before the objectives have been achieved? And then for General Kane, there's been lots of media coverage that suggested a ground invasion is imminent. What other purposes might the soldiers and the Marines who have been deployed over to the Middle East serve in this conflict?
Well, just like the previous question, it's sort of military 101. Don't tell your enemy what you're willing to do or not do, and don't tell your enemy when you're willing to stop, especially an enemy that likes to hide in bunkers and try to hoard their missiles and hope you'll wait you out. So that's not a question I'm going to answer, or the president has said definitively. We have our own goals and guidance and things we're military objectives that we're moving toward and things that we look at. And as he's articulated, he's said, 4 to 6 weeks, 6 to 8 weeks, it could be any particular number, but we would never reveal precisely what it is because our goal is to finish those objectives. And we're well on our way. And the chairman and I look at this every single day. It will be the president's determination and the president's determination alone when those objectives are complete and when it serves the interest of the American people to cut that deal, to make sure that Iran doesn't have a nuclear capability and ultimately that our objectives, our interests are advanced. I don't know if you want to add anything.
No, just to add.
Okay, so first of all, the reason why Pete Hegseth is not answering that question is because he doesn't know. The president of the United States doesn't know. Nobody in the Trump administration knows how long this war is going to take. Nobody in this administration really knows what their objectives are because they keep changing on a daily basis. The reason why Pete Hegseth wouldn't answer that question has nothing to do with giving up information to Iran. If they really cared about that, then maybe they would sanction Russia because, as we know, every single day, Vladimir Putin is sharing intelligence with Iran and putting our troops in harm's way. Pete Hegseth has no idea. How do we know this? A few weeks ago, Donald Trump held a press conference and he said, the war is just about over. We're ending the war. It's just about over. On that same day, Pete Hegseth held a press conference and said, this is just the beginning. They have no idea. They have no idea how long this war is going to take. They're desperate. They're running out of missiles, and they are clueless. And then we get to the point where Donald Trump was basically threatening war crimes against Iran. And Pete Hegseth is asked about the legalities of this. And again, tap dances around the ridiculous and insane and criminal statements that Donald Trump had just made. Watch this interaction.
Secretary, thank you for the question. Do you still believe, you said previously that the Iranian leadership would surrender? Do you still believe that? And is the United States still committed to NATO's collective defense? And to Chairman King, could you give us a sense of your thinking about the legality of striking desalinization plants if the president were to order that?
I will just say that any mission that ends on our terms, going to call it a surrender, call it a defeat, call it what you want, we remain committed to it. A conflict that ends on our terms and the president's terms. There's no doubt about that. And as far as NATO is concerned, that's a decision that'll be left to the president. But I'll just say a lot has been laid bare. A lot has been shown to the world about what our allies would be willing to do for the United States of America when we undertake an effort of this scope on behalf of the free world. These are missiles that don't even range the United States of America. They range allies and others. And yet when we ask for additional assistance or simple access basing overflight, we get questions or roadblocks or hesitations. And the president's pointing out, you don't have much of an alliance if you have countries that are not willing to stand with you when you need them. He's simply pointing that out. And ultimately, it'll be his decision of what that looks like after this is complete.
I'll just won't talk about any particular target. This really builds on Jillian's question too, that I don't think I completely answered. But you know, the joint force is the most professional force in the world, and we have numerous processes and system to carefully consider the whole range of considerations, from civilian risk to legal considerations with any target. And as targets come before us, we run them through the same process that we always do, and always strike lawful targets in accordance with the normal procedures that we use.
No quarter, no mercy for enemy combatants. As I said this said.
Thank you, Mr. President.
So basically what you just heard there by both of those men is a word salad. What Donald Trump endorsed and threatened were war crimes. And Pete Hegseth is sitting there making excuses for what the president said when, again, you could just look this up if you would like to. And then when the comment comes up and a reporter asked about the Strait of Hormuz. Now, before I give you Pete Hegseth and his response, I want to remind all of you that the entire administration, including Donald Trump, has been begging other countries to bail them out in this situation. There is a chance that they might end this war without addressing what is going on, the Strait of Hormuz. And listen to Pete Hegseth and another word salad in regards to this.
We've had some signaling that the U.S. will retake control of the Strait of Hormuz. At that point, what military posture will be imposed to guarantee safe passage for our allies, deter our enemies, and demonstrate U.S. dominance in the region? And also, can you speak to how much America's adversaries, Russia, China, North Korea, how much they're supporting Iran's war machine at this point with arms and intelligence, and what we are militarily doing to punish the enemy coalition?
Appreciate both questions. On the Strait of Hormuz, there are many more vessels flowing through today than there were, as the president has arranged. The president's been clear to Iran, open it for business, or we have options, and we certainly do. And when you look at what the chairman laid out with the Navy industrial base, with coastal cruise missiles, with UAVs, with counter mine capabilities, we've been focused from the beginning on attriting and defeating those capabilities and limiting their options. There's lots we're doing as well, some of which is known, some of which is not known, to set the conditions. And I think the president was clear this morning in his truth that there are countries around the world who ought to be prepared to step up on this critical waterway as well. It's not just the United States Navy. Last time I checked, there was supposed to be a big bad Royal Navy that could be prepared to do things like that as well. So he's pointing out this is an international waterway that we use less than most, in fact, dramatically less than most. So the world ought to pay attention and be prepared to stand up. President Trump's been willing to do the heavy lifting on behalf of the free world to address this threat of Iran. It's not just our problem set going forward, even though we have done the lion's share of preparation to ensure that that strait will be open, which is an outcome the president's been very clear on. As far as Russia and China, we know exactly what they're doing, what they are or are not doing. We don't have to air publicly what all of that is, but where necessary, we're addressing it, we're mitigating it, or we're confronting it.
Really? How have you confronted it? By rewarding Vladimir Putin and President Xi? Tell me how you're confronting it. Oh, we'll deal with it. Don't worry about that. As Vladimir Putin puts our own troops in harm's way, sharing intel with Iran. Oh, yeah, we know what they're doing. We don't have to talk about it publicly. Really? What are you doing? What are you doing? And by the way, the entire administration has been begging other countries to bail them out. How do we know this? Because we have world leaders in other countries that have talked about it publicly. They don't want to help. And Trump is begging them. The art of the deal is not the art of the deal after all. What a disaster this has been. And while all this is going on, Caroline the liar Leavitt, who seems to be the president's mouthpiece in more ways than one, is basically defending potential war crimes. And it's either one of two things. It's either she has no idea what a war crime is, or possibly number two, she knows, but again, she's wearing the Donald Trump knee pads and defending her boss, Donald Trump, or maybe a little bit of both. Watch this pathetic exchange.
The president posted this morning about, his threat on leaving Iran. He said we might be blowing up and completely obliterating all of their electric generating plants, oil wells, Harg Island, and possibly all desalinization plants. Under international law, striking civilian infrastructure like that is generally prohibited. Why is the president threatening what would amount to potentially a war crime with the U.S. military? And how do you square that with the administration repeatedly saying that the U.S. does not target civilians?
Look, the president has made it quite clear to the Iranian regime at this moment in time, as evidenced by the statement that you just read, that their best move is to make a deal, or else the United States Armed Forces has capabilities beyond their wildest imagination, and the president is not afraid to use them. That's not what I said, Garrett. And you're saying the word potential for a reason, because I'm sure some experts are telling you that in your ear to try to ask me that question. Of course, this administration and the United States Armed Forces will always act within the confines of the law. But with respect to achieving the full objectives of Operation Epic Fury, President Trump is going to move forward unabated, and he expects the Iranian regime to make a deal with the administration.
You're always working within the confines of the law, yet you attack a school there in Iran where over 175 children lose their lives, and then you first blame Iran, and then when you're caught, you say it was bad intelligence. That's not a war crime at all, is it? The president of the United States basically threatened potential war crimes, and Caroline Leavitt doesn't answer the question, sidesteps it. Well, the word is potential. Well, yeah, you're potentially threatening war crimes against Iran. Yeah, it's potential because he hasn't done it yet. but he's still threatening to do it, and he's the president of the United States. And I'm not surprised that Caroline, the liar, double chin Levette, is defending it. I am not surprised at that at all. I don't know. Caroline's starting to look like Weird Al Yankovic in that music video, Eat It. I don't know. I don't know. I'm just saying. I'm sorry. I have her confused with Donald Trump, who's morbidly obese. I apologize. Maybe she's starting to eat the Donald Trump diet. I don't know. Who knows? Not like there's anything serious going on in the world, right? We got the war in the Ukraine, which is sadly still going strong, and more innocent people are losing their lives. There is no peace in the Middle East, although it was only 2 months ago where Donald Trump said there was, until Israel and Hamas broke ceasefire agreements. And now we're in a war that we shouldn't be in, that is illegal. If you want to talk about the confines of the law, why didn't he go through Congress? Donald Trump didn't do that. We have inflation that continues to rise. The unemployment numbers continue to rise. Private sector job growth is abysmal right now. The economy is headed towards a recession. Everything in every category headed in the wrong direction. So what is Donald Trump and his people doing? They're posting a video about the presidential library. Yes, that's right, ladies and gentlemen, the presidential library. They took the time to put together this video during a time when we're in an ill-advised and I would argue illegal war. Watch this. So there you go, ladies and gentlemen. While we're at a war, an ill-advised war, and our brave men and women in uniform sadly are coming home in caskets, Donald Trump and his administration are more concerned about putting their name on a library and putting Trump's name on everything from dollar bills to libraries, the Kennedy Center, you name it. That's really what's important to Donald Trump. Making billions of dollars in a crypto scheme, taking money from you, the American people, stealing money from you, the American people, upwards of $175 billion that the American consumer has to pay because of these tariffs, but put his name on the library and put videos out on that. It's really sick. These people are really sick people. And at this point, I really don't know what else to say other than this is an absolute disaster. And there's a lot of people in this country that are very upset when you look at the No Kings rallies and the 8 to 10 million people that were protesting all over the country. A lot of people that are not very happy, including some MAGA Republicans. And I think this war in Iran just finally put a lot of people over the edge. That's my personal opinion, but I don't know why it took this long. But look at where we're at right now as a country. When you look at the failures of ICE and Kristi Noem, look at what took place in Minneapolis and the tragedies there with Renee Good and Alex Preddy. When you look at these failed immigration policies and all these people that are suffering in this country and those that have been deported, when you look at the tax breaks for the biggest tech billionaires on the planet, the biggest tax breaks of the top 1%, upwards of over $100 billion in tax breaks. Think about what we could have done with that money to help people that are struggling. When you look at the big and beautiful bill where over 20 million people have lost their Medicaid healthcare coverage, while we give the biggest tax breaks for the rich, and millions of people have lost their food stamps, their food assistance. People, this is what Republicans do every time they're elected. The people that suffer the most are the people that are already suffering, people that are living paycheck to paycheck, people that are unemployed, single mothers, you name it. People that have to work 2, 3, 4 jobs just to make ends meet to get by so they can afford their rent. These are the people that are struggling the most under the Trump administration, and the people that are benefiting the most are the billionaires. But Donald Trump cares more about putting out videos and his name on the presidential library. Is that making America first? No, it's making Donald Trump first. But that's the way this guy has lived his entire life, and this is the way he will continue to live his life because he's not changing. I want to switch topics here, if I may, because this is another culture war story that I think is really important to be told, and I want to take some phone calls on this as well. A player who plays for the Chicago Bulls. I was never extremely familiar with him. He was a decent college basketball player. He plays for the Chicago Bulls. His name is Jaden Ivey. He's not a starter. He's averaging like 8-2, so he's not a starter. He never will be an NBA starter. He's an average to below average NBA basketball player who's not really helping the Chicago Bulls win. The Chicago Bulls decided to lay him off, for lack of a better term, fired him, cut him, whatever word you want to use. And the reason why they did that was not just because he wasn't really producing in the way they wanted him to do on the basketball court, but because he is very anti-gay. He's anti-gay Pride Month. And he hides behind his religion. So this is the video, and I want to play it for you first, of Jaden Ivey that got him in trouble and ultimately got him cut from the Chicago Bulls. Watch this.
God did not make a man to be with a man. How God did not make a girl to be with a girl. God made a man for the purpose of procreation, to have another child. How else? How can a woman bear a child with a woman? How? God.
So first of all, that is your opinion, which I disagree with. You have no idea whether there is a God. And if there is a God, you have no idea what God's opinions are on men and women. That is your opinion. But when you work for a company and you represent a company that I would imagine have plenty of people that are gay, men that are attracted to men and women that are attracted to women, that buy Chicago Bulls tickets and buy Chicago Bulls jerseys, hats, you name it, that is going to be offensive to some people. Those people that are offended are probably not going to go to games anymore. So it ultimately hurts your product. Now, there are a lot of people on social media on the right that are obviously too stupid to understand that. So I want to play you now Jaden Ivey. And by the way, this guy, Jaden Ivey, not a very intelligent person. He doesn't seem to understand why he was let go. This isn't about just the team winning basketball games. It's about the business and the product that you have hurt, because some people now are not going to buy tickets. So listen to Jaden Ivey's response. This is hours after he found out that he was let go.
Why didn't they just say, we don't agree with his stance on LGBTQ? Why didn't they say that? Well, how is it conduct detrimental to the team? What did I do to the team? What did I do to the players? I did nothing but practice with them, play with them, pass the ball to them, good teammate to them. Said good job, good shot. I said, good job, good pass. Way to play, bro. Right? I said these things to my teammates. Was never detrimental to them. So why is it that the NBA and the Chicago Bulls say that I'm detrimental to the team? How? Because I believe in the truth. Because I know Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life.
So obviously he's not very intelligent, because if he was, he would understand when you make statements about a group of people and you judge a group of people, that could be offensive to some of those people, and some of those people buy tickets to games, and some of those people buy jerseys and hats and merchandise. It's detrimental to the business of the Chicago Bulls. And for the right wingers out there that don't seem to understand that, you're very stupid. I really don't know what else to say. This isn't hard to figure out. And let me be very clear on this guy, because obviously I disagree with him. You have no idea whether Jesus exists. You have no idea whether God exists. Just because you read something in a book doesn't make it fact. You have the right to believe it if you want to. You can believe in the tooth fairy if you want to. You could be Kyrie Irving and you could think that the earth is flat. You can believe in what you want, but here's what these people do, because I debate these people almost every day. Many of these people, like Jaden Ivey, are bigots. What they do is they take groups of people, in this case, homosexuality, and they judge them as sinners. They want to tell other people what to do with their lives. Not against the law to be gay, might I add. But they make judgments on people because they're not like him. And then when they're called bigots, which is exactly what they are, when they're called homophobes, which is exactly what they are, what do? They hide behind their religion like the cowards that they are. Oh, well, my religion tells me that it's okay to do this. This is what I believe in. It's my worldview. My religion tells me this. Who cares what your religion says? So let me just get this right. If I'm in the workplace, let's just say an office job, for example, and I know that there are people in the office that happen to be gay, and I make some negative comments about homosexuality that are offensive to some people, and then my boss calls me into his office and he's like, you made some statements that are very hurtful to some of your fellow employees. It's also bad for the company if it becomes public. And my excuse would be, well, this is just what my religion tells me. Do you think the boss would say, oh, then it's okay. No problem. No problem. No, of course not. What if I went on the side of a street with a sign that said, I hate white people? Or, by the way, I would never do that. I hate the color of somebody's skin. I hate white people, or I hate black people. And then I'm working for a company and it becomes a public story. And the company that I work for says, hey, this is bad for our brand. This is bad for our company. We're going to lose business because of your hatred towards a group of people. We got to let you go. And then my response is, well, my religion told me to do that. Oh, okay, no problem. No big deal. No problem. No, of course not. That's not the way it works. This guy is so stupid. And these people on the right are so dumb. They're saying, well, they're attacking him for his religion. No, they're not. You can believe what you want. But when you say things publicly and you are a part of a business, in this case, the Chicago Bulls, which is a business, it's a business. They make money. It can hurt the business. They let you go. You can go home and you can believe that if you want to. But when you post things on social media and you are representing the Chicago Bulls and they don't agree with what you're doing because they think it can hurt their product, then they let you go. Now, he can continue to make these videos now all he wants to, but he's no longer going to be a Chicago Bull. And I support that 150%. I agree. He's taking an entire group of people and calling them basically all sinners for just having a different sexuality, which is, by the way, a bigoted view. It's ridiculous. If you don't want to be gay, then guess what? Don't be gay. Nobody's forcing you to be gay. But for people out there that want to be gay, not only do they have the right to do that, but when you represent a large business organization, or in this case, an NBA franchise, it is your responsibility to not offend groups of people and then hide behind your religion. That is exactly what this guy has done. This isn't about freedom of speech. People don't seem to understand. The whole freedom of speech argument only pertains to the government, meaning the government can't come after you. You can't get arrested for freedom of speech. But freedom of speech and what you say always has consequences. When you have a job and you represent a business, in this case, the Chicago Bulls, and I agree with them on this, they think it's detrimental, not just to the team, but to the business, making money. Why is this so hard for people to understand? Why are some of these religious zealots on the right so dumb? Why are they so dumb? Can somebody please explain to me why they're so dumb? It hurts your business when you have people that get out there and post social media videos that are hating, and that's exactly what he's doing, on people because they have a different sexuality than you. That is part of the base. Now, you could make the argument that if this guy was an NBA All-Star averaging 30 and 20 a game, they probably would have just suspended him. They probably wouldn't have let him go. But the guy also wasn't producing on the basketball court either. So I'm sure that played a role in this as well. They were probably annoyed with that as well. And then when he put out these videos, that probably put them over the top. And I support the Chicago Bulls and what they do. And by the way, any private business has the right to fire you if they feel like your behavior is detrimental not only to the team in this situation, but to, I'll say it again, the business. The business. Why is that so hard for people out there on the right, the religious zealots and the Bible thumpers, to understand? Not only did they have the right to do it, but I think the Chicago Bulls made the right decision. It would be no different as if an NBA player or any professional athlete or anybody that represents a large business or small business generalized statements on social media about groups of people. Now, I'm not going to say her name. It's somebody that I am not very fond of who lives here in Las Vegas. I think this person still lives here. She used to be a right-wing talk show host here in town. And sadly, an organization that I used to work for hired this individual because the person at the time who hired her is an imbecile as well. But long story short, the person who used to do this political talk show were making comments about homosexuals that were in a very negative tone. And those statements that were made were basically saying that if you're a straight man and a straight woman, you're best suited to raise children. But if you're a gay couple, you're not best suited to raise children. Now, what happened? There were some sponsors that pulled out of her show because why? There are some gay people and straight people that were offended by those statements because you're taking an entire group of people and you're making a gross generalization. She was fired. She is no longer on the air here in Las Vegas and hasn't been for a long time. And guess what? She deserves it. But there were people on the right that were taking her side. Oh, well, that's her opinion. That's her religion. Guess what? Keep it to yourself. There are sponsors that sponsor your show. Some of those people happen to be gay. There are people that go into Chicago Bulls games that buy tickets that are gay. There are people that buy merchandise that are gay. It hurts the product. It hurts the business, not just the team winning and losing basketball games and morale. It hurts the business. Why is that so difficult for people to understand? This has nothing to do with freedom of speech. The government wasn't involved in him getting fired. It had everything to do with a private organization that makes a lot of money, and they felt like this hurts their product. This hurts them, their monetary value, which I tend to agree with. I think when you generalize anybody, I would say the same thing, that if an NBA player, and I don't think this is different, this is a political thing, but if an NBA player said some atrocious things about anybody who voted for Donald Trump and was constantly on social media attacking Donald Trump, that would probably hurt the organization because, as you know, there are plenty of Republicans that go to basketball games. I'm sure there are plenty of Trump supporters that still buy tickets and go to games. So I would say the same thing there as well. I think what this guy did is far worse. He generalized an entire group of people because of their sexuality that's different than his. And he said there shouldn't be Gay Pride Month. Just like many Trump supporters out there, and including Donald Trump, think that Martin Luther King Day should be taken off the boards as well. It's very offensive to a lot of people. So I do want to take your phone calls on this. I think this guy is a complete buffoon, but I do want to take your phone calls on this. The number to call, by the way, if you want to be a part of the conversation, is 702-221-7283. And again, that number to call if you want to be a part of the conversation is 702-221-SAVE. 702-221-7283. Do you think I'm wrong on this? Do you think the Chicago Bulls were wrong in letting this guy go? I do want to get your thoughts on that. Now, I can't believe we are almost approaching Mother's Day. And I was just talking to my mom yesterday, and I am so happy, I can't even begin to tell you, to be teamed up with the wonderful people at Cozy Earth. They just sent me a whole bed set with sheets, and I got to tell you, yesterday was probably the best night of sleep I've ever had. And Cozy Earth, their mission obviously is to elevate the everyday by showing the craft behind every piece. And I lied on their product, and I got to tell you, man, it was awesome. So they sell all sorts of different things. They sell robes. I just got my mom a robe. I just gave it away for Mother's Day. They sell slippers. And here's the best part about this. is that because you're a loyal listener of the Pushing the Limits radio show, if you use the promo code before you make your purchase, and the promo code being PTL, you're going to get an exclusive 20% off. How cool is that? On all of the stuff that you get there, which is so cool. It's so cool. So check out their website, by the way. It's cozyearth.com, and use that promotional code for an exclusive 20% off offer there. And it's so cool. And please make sure that when you take the survey there at the end, you mentioned our name and you heard about it from PTL. They're authentic. Everything they sell is completely authentic. And here's another great part of it. Risk-free purchase, 100-night sleep trial. So they have a 10-year warranty also. So it's risk-free. Give it a shot. Please check them out. CozyEarth.com. Use the promo code PTL to get 20% off, because home starts with mom. All right, we're going to take some phone calls now at 702-221-7283. Again, that number, 702-221-7283. A lot of stuff we're talking about today. Obviously, I was just talking about this NBA player, Jaden Ivey, who was let go by the Chicago Bulls. I believe it's deserving. I think he's a bigot. And then all these people, they hide behind their religion. I don't seem to have a problem with it. All right, let's start off with Jerry. Jerry is first up on PTL. Hello, Jerry.
Hey, Brian, what's going on? How
Hey,
you doing, man?
what's up, Jerry? What's on your mind today? What's up?
Man, a lot is on my mind. A lot is on my mind. For starters, I just want to say with Ivy, at least he had the conads to say what he said, unlike people like Chili and TLC, who can't just admit that she's a MAGA supporter, but that's neither here nor there. But with your discussion, I mean, I kind of understand what you're saying, but at the same time, I just think what he was saying, I understood what he was saying. He just wasn't, the wording, how he explained everything didn't make sense. Now, you can agree to disagree, but you don't have to necessarily bring God or, because it's a new time.
Okay, so can I hear what you're saying. Let me just say this to you. If he said it in a different way, for example, if he said, I don't necessarily agree with that lifestyle, but I want you to live your life, and I want you to do the things that make you happy. It's not something that I would do. I wouldn't really have a problem with that, but he didn't do that. As you said, he didn't choose his words very well. He wants to abolish Gay Pride Month, and he doesn't seem to understand. This is the problem with some of these people. They don't understand that people who are gay have suffered through discrimination for a very, very long time. And when you say you don't want Gay Pride Month, it's very offensive to a lot of people. You don't have to agree with their lifestyle. You don't have to agree with what they're doing. Fine, no problem. But the way he made it sound like is that the people that are homosexuals, it's against God, it's against Jesus. He made it sound so horrible. And I think that's why the Chicago Bulls said, okay, enough is enough.
Yeah, well, they just, at the end of the day, there's no freedom of speech. If that's the case, they did the same with Cap. They did the same with Mahmoud back in '94.
Okay, but I hear what you're saying. But okay, Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf you're talking about. So okay, but hold on. But hear me out on this. This has nothing to do with freedom of speech. You know why? Because freedom of speech doesn't pertain to private business. It pertains to the government. Example, this guy can't get arrested for saying what he said. The government can't get involved. That's what freedom of speech pertains to. Freedom of speech doesn't pertain to private business. There are always going to be consequences to the words that you use. And now he's suffering those consequences. You see what I'm saying? This isn't really a freedom of speech thing like some people are making it out to be. There's always consequences for the things you say.
And that's what I'm trying to tell you, Brian. It's similar because Cap, he was just telling you what was going on with the black community. It wasn't even about kneeling. That's besides the point. The point was he was telling the NFL about the police brutality with black people. Point blank and period.
Yeah.
The right switched it up and tried to say it was kneeling. It was never about kneeling because at the first point, the first game of the preseason, he was sitting down. He spoke to somebody in the NFL who had military experience. What would be the most respectful way to do it? That's when kneeling came involved.
Right.
My point is, like I'm telling you, and we can agree to disagree. What you cannot, as an NBA player, as an athlete, at the end of the day, you're an employee. You're an employee.
Right.
So you can't say certain things like Captain.
So what do we disagree on? I'm confused. I agree with you. What do we disagree on then?
You were just telling me about freedom. You were telling me about the freedom of speech.
Well, yeah, that pertains to the. Well, yeah, because that pertains to the government. It doesn't pertain to private business. Freedom of speech. What that pertains to is law enforcement, and our government can't get involved and punish you. That's what it pertains to. It doesn't pertain to private business, right? If you own a private, let me ask you a question. If in fact, let's just say hypothetically speaking, you owned a business, a very thriving business that, and one of your employees said something attacking a group of people, let's just hypothetically say Jewish people, and you have a lot of Jewish clients, would you want that person representing your company, or would you let that person go? If they made anti-Semitic comments, you wouldn't want that person representing your country because it would hurt your bottom line, right? That's exactly what the Chicago Bulls are doing.
But at the same time, Cap said some stuff too, which I agree with Cap 100%. And it offended the right. It offended certain people. Like, hey, you're not supposed to.
Okay, but hold on. I hear you. Listen, I defended those players for taking a knee. I want to be very clear on that. However, Colin Kaepernick did a lot of stupid, horrible things. First of all, wearing a Fidel Castro shirt, wearing pig socks. Yeah. This was a guy, by the way, who was barely even a second-string quarterback. So I do believe that had a lot to do with it as well. If all Colin Kaepernick did was take a knee, then I would agree with you. But he did a lot of stupid things, and you could also make the argument he made more money off the field than on the field, and he was on his way out the door as an NFL quarterback anyway because he wasn't good enough. But again, you can't wear pig socks and make it sound like all police officers are bad. You can't wear a Fidel Castro shirt and then say you're on the right of you're against police brutality, which I think most all good people are. So I think there was a little bit more to it than what you're saying. Do I think those players taking a knee were SOBs? Of course not. I supported them. I went to Black Lives Matter protest. I didn't have a problem with them taking a knee.
I believe you.
Yeah, I didn't have. Yeah, go ahead.
Let me ask you this, and then I'll let you go.
Okay.
We got other callers.
Yeah.
So can you give me your opinion on Chile? What do you think of Chile? Myself, I think she just needs to go ahead and go 10 toes down. If you're a MAGA supporter, you're a MAGA supporter, but don't sit here and try to insult our intelligence saying,
yeah,
well, I didn't know, I'm not computer savvy, or no.
I know.
So
I know.
You should have read the contract back in the 90s.
Right. So I know I know musicians out there that have lost fans because of their political affiliation. One of my personal friends, and he wouldn't mind me saying this, a very popular band back in the 90s, Richard Patrick, the lead singer of that band, is a friend of mine. He's lost business because he's anti-Donald Trump. But that's a choice that he was willing to make. I don't hear him crying about it. Oh, I can't believe I lost all that money, freedom of speech. No, he's not crying about it because he knew his words had consequences. Now, obviously, I agree with him. What I don't like is this guy crying about how the Bulls let him go. No, they let him go because you're hurting the company. That's why. Thank you for the call, sir. 702-221-7283 is the number to call if you'd like to be a part of the conversation. Let's go to George. George is next on PTL. Hello, George.
Hello.
Yes. Hi, George. Go ahead.
Yeah. Hi. So I wanted to to actually bring up about what's going on with ICE and immigration. And yeah, I think have a take you might find, I guess, spicy. And it was actually inspired by something related to the no, you know what? It actually had to do with ICE immigration, because there was an immigrant, actually legal immigrant journalist, who the administration and the courts decided does not have First Amendment protections. And so what I'm thinking is that thinking to give undocumented and illegal immigrants protections, especially constitutional protections, especially where it says persons, well, giving them those kinds of protections and giving them personhood is something that creates so many problems, and it was a huge cause.
What problems is it creating? If you have somebody that comes into this country, if you have somebody that comes into this country that has never committed a violent crime in their life, by the way, it's not a felony, it's a misdemeanor to come to this country illegally. What problems do you think it's? Let's talk about that.
Well, all the problems that have been caused by illegal immigration.
Tell me. I'm asking you. Be
Work from
specific.
taking work from Americans.
So you think?
Resources
So
from
you
government.
think? So you think undocumented immigrants are taking jobs away from Americans? Because I disagree with you on that. If you care, so okay. So you care about taking resources away. You think undocumented immigrants are taking resources away. So are you for the big and beautiful bill?
Yeah, I mean, I'm an independent voter, but I see the problems with immigration.
Okay, but wait, you're not answering my question. I didn't ask you what your political affiliation was. Right now, I don't care. My question to you is, you care about taking resources away. What are your thoughts on the big and beautiful bill? That was my question.
I like some things, not others, but that's irrelevant.
No, it's very relevant, and I'm going to tell you why. You don't like people, in this case, undocumented immigrants, taking resources away. Are you aware of the resources that are being taken away from American citizens in the big and beautiful bill? Yes or no? You're not.
Only with regards to food stamps. The food stamps.
It's a little bit more.
Parts of
It's a little,
Obamacare.
It's a little.
Excuse
No.
me, like,
Okay. If you claim, and I'm going to take you for your word, sir, that you care about undocumented immigrants taking away all of our resources, which is what I'm getting from you, yet you don't know what's in the big and beautiful bill. So let me help you. 20 million Americans are losing their health care coverage because of the big and beautiful bill. Millions of Americans are losing food stamps. So if you care, like you claim you do, about illegal immigrants taking away resources, then why wouldn't you be against the big and beautiful bill?
I think that's not really what I want to discuss.
Well, too bad. I'm proving that you're a hypocrite. I'm trying to nail. No, there's no but, sir.
Talking about
with respect, sir, with respect, I think the weakness is you're inconsistent and you're a hypocrite. You're making the case that all these undocumented immigrants are taking all of our resources away. By the way, I could rebut that by saying there's a lot of undocumented immigrants in this country that are willing to work jobs that Americans don't want to work. And there's a lot of undocumented immigrants that are very hard workers in this country, but that's here nor there. You're claiming you care about resources. Have you spoken out about the $2 billion a day this war is costing us? Or is that not a priority of yours either? You just think undocumented immigrants bad. They're taking away all of our resources, but I don't know anything about the big and beautiful bill, and I don't want to talk about the war in Iran. Does that bother you that it's costing us $2 billion a day?
I'd say yes, it bothers me, but
Good.
but in your case, you know, let's say the biggest controversy from Minnesota is the entire fraud case with the Somali immigrants.
How many people have been arrested? Okay, so now you want to pivot from $2 billion a day the war is costing us, and now you want to attack immigrants again, in this case, Somali immigrants. So you probably were a big supporter of that Nick Shirley video, right? So you thought it was great, right?
I don't know about.
You don't know. Okay, you just brought up Somali. So let's talk a little bit about that. What new investigations are in Minneapolis right now that Kash Patel has announced in regards to Somalis that are committing fraud? Do you know any new investigations since the Nick Shirley video came out? Are there any new investigations?
No.
No. Okay. So why would you bring that up then?
Because of just how big it was, the billions of dollars involved, the fact that it
okay. So who
90
so what Somalians what Somalians were convicted? By the way, it was an American that was running that, and it was under the Joe Biden administration where they arrested over 90 people. But you probably didn't know that, sir. But there was an American that was running that. But you care about fraud, right, sir? You don't want people, which I think is great. You don't want people committing fraud in this country, right? You think they should be held to account. Is that a fair characterization of what you would say? That's fair, right? You don't want fraud. Good. Okay.
It gets spicy.
No. Hold on. This is where it gets spicy. Do you understand that Donald Trump has pardoned over 20 people that have committed billions of dollars in fraud and they don't have to pay back restitution? Instead of attacking Somalis, why aren't you going after Donald Trump for those pardons, sir? Why doesn't that bother you? Or were you unaware of that as well?
Because it's part of it. Because it's part of the debate with immigrants and with immigrants.
No. Nope. You're not going to go back to immigrants. I'm going to say what I just said again, which you're not addressing, because I'm sure you're a Donald Trump supporter. And I understand in this entire phone call, you just want to attack immigrants and brown people, but I'm not going to let you do that. You're going to answer my question. Doesn't it bother you at all, since you care so much about fraud like you claim, even though you admitted there's no new investigations into Somali fraud in Minneapolis? Doesn't it bother you at all, sir, that over 20 people Donald Trump has pardoned who have committed billions of dollars in fraud and they don't have to pay back restitution? Why are you not talking about that, since you care so much about fraud? Sir, please answer that specific question, please, with respect. Hello?
Because it's
what? Because it's not brown people. Because it's white people, right? It's not brown people. Oh, okay. So fraud is okay. Okay, let me get this right. So your perspective is fraud is okay so long as you're a citizen. But if you're not a citizen, then we want you to be held to account. But as long as you're a U.S. citizen, fraud is fine. Take a pardon. You don't have to pay back restitution. Do you realize how ridiculous that sounds, sir?
I mean, when you put it that
No. It's the way you put it. I just asked you, and instead of you saying, like any normal human being would say, yeah, that's also terrible. People that are committing fraud shouldn't get pardons and they should have to pay back restitution. Instead of you saying that, you pivoted and then you said, well, they're U.S. citizens, meaning it's okay to commit fraud if you're a U.S. citizen, but if you're not a U.S. citizen, we want to go after you. Do you realize how ridiculous you sound?
Why are you so hurtful?
I'm not hurtful. You're hurtful, because in this entire conversation, you have gone after brown people. You have gone after immigrants. And then when I put you in a corner and talk to you about the orange turd, who, by the way, pardons people who commit billions of dollars in fraud, then you say, Brian, don't be hurtful. I'm sorry if it's hurtful if I tell you the truth and I expose you for attacking immigrants. I'm a truth teller. You are somebody who wants to blame immigrants for all your problems. First, you start this conversation and you talk about the wasteful spending and you know, you're very concerned about undocumented immigrants taking away all of our resources. And then when I talk to you about the big and beautiful bill, you're ignorant to it. You don't understand that there are American citizens that are losing their Medicaid, they're losing their food stamps, but you don't want to talk about that. And then when you talk about fraud and you want to blame Somalis in Minneapolis for all of your problems, even though we both agree that there aren't even any new investigations into any Somali fraud. And then I explained to you that Donald Trump, I would imagine the guy who you support, has pardoned over 20 people that have committed billions of dollars in fraud. And I expose you for being a hypocrite. You curl into your little paw and say, Brian, don't be hurtful. Guess what? I'm sorry. Sometimes the truth hurts, sir. So my advice to you, stop attacking immigrants and blaming immigrants for all of your problems. And maybe it should start with the president of the United States and stop being a hypocrite. What do you think about that? Or was that too hurtful for you, sir?
What I wanted to talk about was...
Are you crying, sir? Did I make you cry? Are you crying, sir? Did I make you cry? I'm glad I made, yeah, good. I'm glad I made a MAGA cry today. I hope you get deported to Gaza. Have a nice day. Stop taking all of my on-air resources away because you just wasted 15 minutes of my time. You buffoon. 702-221-7283 is the number to call. Let's talk to Michael. Michael's next on PTL. What's up, Michael?
Hey, Brian, can I get you laughing for a second before I talk about what I wanted to say?
I love to laugh. I think that last caller was hilarious. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Michael.
Yeah,
I digress.
It's all right. So, hey, George, I hope you're listening. I was praying to my own Jesus, and I pray that you get deported to El Salvador. And while you're inside that prison, you can have a Trump Bible, maybe some Trump condoms, and maybe we can even throw Caroline Levitt in there, and you can pleasure yourself. What do you think about that, buddy?
That is pretty. You did get me laugh. Hey, am I wrong? It sounded like he was crying at the end of that call.
No, it definitely sounded like he was crying for sure.
That is funny. You did get me to laugh. What's on your mind, man? What's up?
Yeah, so I want to talk about something today that's just so, my blood was boiling this morning when I woke up. So the first story from NBC News is that ICE will be at Marine Corps graduation events to identify undocumented family members. And then this other story here from the NBC News is that more than 400 hospitals across the U.S. are at risk or at high risk of closing or cutting service because of the Medicaid cuts and President Trump's big and beautiful bill.
Yeah.
And I was just so angry because let's start off with, ICE being at the Marine Corps' graduation. First off, regardless if they're undocumented or not, these are people who have served this country to ensure that people like me and you can have the right to use our voices and our platforms. And it's just so disgraceful. And, people are going to die and get hurt because of this big and beautiful bill.
Sure.
And I just can't, I'm just so angry, Brian. Like, I don't know.
But you know what? But you understand how damaging, obviously, you're a smart guy. You understand how damaging this bill is. I find it so interesting that somebody will call into this show and talk about how undocumented immigrants are causing all these problems. But then when I give him actual facts about the damage that the Trump administration is doing to actual American citizens, he has no idea. You know what it is? Yeah. It's just hate towards minorities. That's what this is. It's hate towards immigrants. It's hate to minorities. The overwhelming majority of these people that are in this country illegally are not bad people. But yet these white privileged MAGA fools, that's what it is. It's just attacks on minorities. Meanwhile, notice how when I bring up the fraud and how Donald Trump has pardoned all these people that have committed fraud, he doesn't have a problem with that, right? Because they're U.S. citizens. So it's okay to commit fraud and get a pardon if you're a U.S. citizen. But if you're one of those Somalis, oh boy, we'll lock you up. I mean, it's just racism, man. That's all it is.
It's absolutely insane. And these are the same people, too, that are okay with Donald Trump pardoning a whole bunch of January 6th insurrectionists.
Yep.
They're okay when ICE agents are dragging family members and children into the streets, beating them up and throwing them in vans.
Yep.
And the sad part about all this is that when all this is done, we're probably going to hear reports about people being dead or starved or severely injured. And that's just
My friend, did you go? Did you go, by the way, my friend, to any of the No Kings protests?
Yeah, I called in
Good
yesterday.
for you.
And I told
Good.
you I went to
well, let me tell you
over the weekend.
Let me tell you something. People like you are the real patriots in this country because you care about America and you have compassion. You're not a hostage or a patriot, as you rightfully pointed out. If you beat police officers on January 6th, people like you are the real patriots that care about this country. And you're very concerned, as I am, at the direction this country is headed. And I get very upset at people that call people like you or me, we hate the country. Why? Because we're protesting an evil regime? No, it's the opposite of that. I just wanted to point that out because you brought up January 6th.
Yeah, I just want to say one thing, too, before I go. I've lost a lot of family and friends because of Donald Trump. And 3 years ago, I was bullied in a group chat by some of my former high school friends. And because of that, I almost committed suicide because I felt guilty for just defending myself and being on the right side of history. And to this day, it still affects me mentally. But I'm still here. I'm still strong. And I'm still going to speak my mind and be on the right side of history. And I'm just glad that I kicked all those idiots out of my inner circle. And I'm just glad to still be here today.
I am so sorry to hear that you had to go through that. And please keep in mind, if you have any of those thoughts, I would hope you got some help and you talked to somebody, because that's the last thing good. Thank God for that. You have family that support you?
Yes, I have my mom. I've met a lot of friends in college, and so I have a good group of friends and stuff.
So, my friend, if you don't mind me asking, because I find this very troubling, and I'm glad you're doing better now, by the way. Did this happen when you were in high school or college, when people were?
This was in high school, but the problem is this was after I graduated, so the school really couldn't do anything about it.
So what was going on? You're obviously like me, right? You're obviously speaking out against the Trump regime. Were you doing that to people that you thought were friends? Were you doing it on social media? What was happening?
It was this one kid named Jake. He's a close friend of mine. We were just having this group chat, trying to maybe like plan to hang out or just hanging out outside of school. And there was just a bunch of kids just throwing out racist stuff and Nazis and all kinds of just horrible, disgusting stuff. And I just went in and defended myself and was calling them out. And then I just got attacked. Physically or verbally? Verbally in the group chat.
Well, yeah, I think that's par for the course for them, right? So listen, I'm going to be honest with you as well. About 1.5 years, 2 years ago, when this show was really starting to take off, I let things affect me, and it's a natural human thing. There's nothing wrong with you for being upset or depressed or wherever. This is a normal human thing. When you have a lot of people that say horrible things about you. And listen, I get this every day. And I guess in my business, I've learned to embrace it, because without these people that hate me and me being one of the most hated people that leans to the left, I wouldn't have the success that I have right now. So I've learned to laugh it off. Obviously, you don't want people getting personal with your family, which has happened to me before, and death threats. There's nothing funny about that. And obviously, I take that very seriously. But listen, if these people weren't upset at you, just like they weren't upset at me, then we would be doing something wrong. The fact that you are brave, that you are willing to stand up, as you said, for the right side of history means any normal human being would have a lot of respect for somebody like you, as I do. So keep that in mind and keep the fight. And listen, on social media, if things bother you to that point, then don't go on social media. You know, I'm not saying you should silence yourself, but don't look at the comments. Don't look at the comments. Say what you want to say, put out videos, don't look at the comments. But I think it's very brave of you to do what you've done, and you've gotten help, which so are you doing better? Are you doing better now? You're in a better place now?
Yeah, I'm in a better place now. By attending these No Kings protests and meeting my friend Xavier, it gives me a lot of comfort and hope. And just by watching your show and calling in and venting, it helps a lot too. So.
Well, you're always going to have the platform to call into this show, my friend. I can promise you that. You're always going to have you're always going to have the opportunity to do that. Just hang in there. We got 2.5 more years. Don't bow down to these people. Don't let them silence you. Keep doing what you're doing, because guess what? In the long run, history is going to be on your side, and you're going to be looking good, and they're going to be looking bad, if not already. So just keep up the fight, my friend, and you stay safe out there. And just know that all of us in PTL Nation are on your side, and we support you. Okay, my friend.
Okay, thank you so much, Brian. I appreciate you.
You bet. You take care, and you hang in there. If there's any way that this show can help people, then man, that makes me feel good. And that's part of the reason why I do this. And I appreciate that phone call. And I'm really sorry for what he's had to go through, because nobody deserves that. 702-221-7283. This is an interesting name. Uncle Fatty. Is that Donald Trump on the line? I don't know. Uncle Fatty. Uncle Fatty, what's going on? That's an interesting name.
Hey, how you doing, B?
What's up?
That was a great call. And, I think everybody that's in America right now is going through the same thing.
Yeah.
We've all lost friends. We've all lost a family member to this MAGA cult.
Yep.
And I really wish George Carlin was still alive.
Yeah, he was great, wasn't he? Oh, he was great.
Yeah.
He
was a linguist, right? He was a master linguist. He could call out this double speak and this cultish mentality of the talking points that sink into people, like the previous caller.
Yeah.
Where you just can't get past the emotional aspect of words, right?
Yep.
Rationalizations and justifications, right, will always get us in trouble.
Yeah.
This is the thing that addicts have to deal with most is the rationalization and the justifying of your actions to do what we do. It's MAGA to a T, right? You poke them, and it's an instant response of fight or flight. It's always fight, and then it's rationalizations and justifications. It's deflection and redirection. It's this aspect. I'm a Gen Xer. We grew up with words in society like prejudice, racism, bigotry. These are everyday words. Right?
Yeah.
Now we're using words from the Roy Cohn school of tactics.
I agree. I agree with everything you've just said. And it's sad. Yeah, it is horrible. It is sad. I felt like Republicans and Democrats were able to have civil conversations 10 years ago, and I do put a lot of that blame on Donald Trump. And, it's unfortunate where we're at right now as a country. But at the same time, I was full of joy, and I felt really positive during those No Kings protests. A lot of really wonderful people all over the country. I happened to be out there in Carlsbad, California, and I was just amazed. It was just everyone was having a good time, right? Everyone was smiling. There were a lot of kids out there. Everyone's fun. And the message was the same. All these people, they love America. They just hate what Donald Trump is doing. And I think that's the clear message here. And we have to continue that message. Things are going to be looking good around the corner, but we can't assume, right? There's a lot of people that assumed that Kamala Harris was going to win. Now, I thought she was going to win, and I was wrong. I thought it would be very close, but we can't let up. We can't assume that people are all going to get out there and vote. We got to keep the message going. I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing. I want all of you guys to keep doing what you're doing too.
Every day is a good day to flip a MAGA. It's not that hard. The easiest way, brother, easiest way is to laugh at them. Okay. The narcissists' biggest fear, their biggest crutch is the laughing, is the mocking. Right. And we used to have a point in time, like you were saying, with the religious stuff too a bit ago. where the good Christians of America would say, you do you, just don't hurt others physically.
Yes.
Right
Well,
now we're into this judgmental
the
aspect
biggest
of
Yeah.
my Jesus is better than your Jesus.
Oh, I hate that. Oh, I hate
My
that.
God
Yeah.
doesn't create those type of things, right? We've dehumanized each other.
I
to the
hate
point
it.
We're
Yep.
literally like the churches are saying, my God doesn't create those type of things.
They are hypocrites, my friend. Fantastic phone
The
call.
biggest.
Thank you. Thank you for calling in, sir. I really appreciate you. Hypocrisy at its finest. And I love my PTL family. Thank you so much for your call, sir. I'm with you. 702-221-SAVE. MAGA callers are obviously always welcome. Again, that number, 702-221-7283 is the number to call. Let's go to Nelson. Nelson is next on PTL. Hello, Nelson.
Yeah, hello, Brian. How are you? What's up, dude?
What's up? What's on your mind today?
I just want to say that I actually agree with you. I heard the news of Trump threatening to basically obliterate Iran's energy and water infrastructure, and I strongly disagree with that. That's
Well, it's a war crime.
definitely,
It's a war crime.
A horrible idea, and that's very indicative of a war criminal, in my opinion.
Well, that's why-
when he already did that.
That's why I've
when he
already
already
called
made
him that.
right?
I've already called him a war
Sorry,
criminal.
sorry. What-
Yeah, I've already called him a war criminal.
Well, I mean,
yeah.
I would say he pretty much was already a war criminal when he decided to strike Iran.
Okay,
and
good.
take
I'm
out
glad to hear you,
that evil
Nelson.
man, but it took out a lot of
Nelson,
innocent civilians. in the
Nelson, I'm
process,
glad.
unfortunately.
I'm glad to hear you say that, Nelson. So I would assume if the elections were held tomorrow, you would vote for Kamala Harris over Donald Trump.
I wouldn't vote at all if you want me to be real with you.
Why? You just said that Donald Trump is a war criminal, which, by the way, I agree with you on. And now you're saying you wouldn't vote for Kamala?
I agree too. I'm not denying it.
So what's worse as far as Kamala goes? Because you're saying you wouldn't vote for her either. What's worse than in her life than being a war criminal? What's worse?
Well, I never said Kamala was a war criminal.
So why?
Never said that.
I didn't say you said she was a war criminal. Pay attention to my question. What is something that Kamala Harris, her policies, or what she has done in her life that rises to the level of being a war criminal, which you and I agree on, Donald Trump is? What rises anywhere near that level that you say to yourself, you wouldn't vote for Kamala? Help me understand, Nelson.
Yeah, I mean, nothing rises to that level.
So
but
why
I
wouldn't you
really
vote for her?
vote-
So why wouldn't you vote for her
I
then?
wouldn't. Yeah, like I said, I probably wouldn't vote in general because politicians are corrupt on both sides to a
How is
degree.
Kamala corrupt? What has she done? So she was twice an attorney general, duly elected. Then she was a senator. Then she was vice president. Name me like
Oh, that's true. I get credit where credit is due. That's true.
Okay,
That's
so
true.
we've established.
I'll say this.
All right,
like,
so hold
if I
on,
had
hold
to
on,
choose-
Nelson, hold on. So we've established that she hasn't done anything in her life that rises to the level anything close to being a war criminal. You talked about corruption, and we agree.
I agree with
Okay,
that.
and we've
sure.
agreed that she's not a corrupt person. I don't think she's a corrupt person. Good mom, good wife. So let me ask you this question again. Now that we have established that, okay, if the elections were tomorrow and you had two choices between Donald Trump and Kamala Harris, who would you vote for?
Well, since you're putting me on the spot and you're kind of forcing me to choose, if I really had to choose, yes, I would choose Kamala.
Why would
I
it be? Okay, good. But why am I forcing you? Like, why can't it just be an easy answer and say, well, Kamala, because she's not a liable abuser. She's not a felon. She's not a war criminal. She's not corrupt. Like,
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so why would you make it like I'm forcing you? Like, I'm not forcing you. It seems to me that it should be a pretty easy answer, right? I mean, based on what we've talked.
That's fair. I mean, I get it, but the reality is, honestly, I wouldn't vote at all. And by the way, I don't know if you remember my previous conversations because we had so many conversations together. But I told you I voted for Kamala.
I understand that. I understand that. I just don't know why it's so hard for you to, and you have to characterize it as me forcing you. It should be an easy answer. She's not, I mean, and I would say the same thing about a lot of Democrats that are probably going to be running for president, but it's like, I don't understand. We agree that he's a war criminal. We agree on, okay. So like, why wouldn't that be an easy choice? You make it like I'm forcing you. Oh, geez, if I had to, like, why are you making it that way?
I apologize. I guess I didn't mean it like that. I'm
okay.
sorry.
All right.
Yeah.
It's okay. You don't have to apologize. It just, Kamala would not have started a war in Iran. I think we would probably agree on that. Correct?
I would probably agree with that.
Okay,
so I'm not gonna
Kamala would not have done the tariffs. Can we agree on that as well?
Yeah, probably.
Okay.
I would agree with that.
Okay, good. $175 billion stolen from the American consumer. Kamala would not have given the biggest tax breaks for the top 1%, somewhere around $100 billion last year. We agree on that, right?
Definitely true.
Okay, so that's also
definitely
Kamala would have lowered taxes. In fact, her policy under $400,000 for household income, she was going to lower tax brackets. Can we agree on that?
Hopefully.
Okay.
Yeah,
well,
I heard of that.
Donald Trump said no tax on tips. That was a lie. There's no tax on tips with I believe it's a $20,000 or $25,000 cap. Donald Trump said the war would be over in Ukraine in 24 hours. We know that that's a lie. He said he was going to be a peace president and no new regime. Can we also agree that Kamala would not have invaded Venezuela and kidnapped their president, right? She wouldn't have done that, right?
Yeah, well, that I'm actually slightly against. I had a previous conversation with you on that, but that's okay.
Okay, but Kamala wouldn't have done that, correct?
I guess probably not. I don't know.
Definitely not. So when you look at all of the ways in which we grade a president, and this is why his approval ratings are in the toilet, it's because the economy is headed in the wrong direction. He didn't lower prices. He certainly hasn't lowered gas prices right now. He hasn't ended the war in Ukraine. He got us into an ill-advised war, and I would argue an illegal war. He hasn't released any of the Epstein files that, or at least all of them, and a lot of them have been redacted. His name is in there more than Jesus Christ's name is in the Bible. That's all I'm saying, Nelson. I'm saying that it should be an easy answer. I'm not saying Kamala's perfect. I'm not saying she would have had all the answers. She would have been a far better president than Donald Trump, and I don't think that's a ridiculous statement to make.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. I mean, you know my views. You know me. Like, I generally tend to be like more conservative with my views, but at the same time, I had many conversations with you where I don't agree with everything that the Trump administration has done.
It's not about
but I'm really bummed out. Sorry, say it again.
I was just saying it's not really about like agreeing with everything. It's about understanding the damage that Donald Trump is doing to this country and that he's already done. And the fact that if we had Kamala in office, this stuff wouldn't be going on. We wouldn't have a war in Iran. We wouldn't, the economy wouldn't only be benefiting the rich tech billionaires, right? There'd be a lot of things in this country that would be working in our favor. When Joe Biden left office, inflation was headed in the correct direction. Gas prices were continuing to drop. Private sector job growth was good. The unemployment rate was somewhere around, I think, 4.1 or 4.2% when Joe Biden left office. It's much higher now. Things were headed in the right direction, and Joe Biden had to pick up the pieces of the disaster of Donald Trump's first administration. The first administration was a disaster. Trump got us $8.2 trillion in debt. His handling of COVID was terrible. Barack Obama, it took him 8 years to pick up the pieces from George W. Bush and his ill-advised weapons of mass destruction, which were not there, war in Iraq. I'm just trying to understand why you would still be conservative after everything that Republican presidents have done to this country. Like, name me a president.
I mean, it depends what topic you're talking about. You know, there's so many underlying topics when it comes to politics.
All right. Well, what did George W. Bush do good? What did George W. Bush do well?
What I was mainly bummed out pretty much was that under the Trump administration, we were promised no new wars, and now we have.
Why did you believe him? Why did you believe him? Why did you believe him? Why do you believe anything that Donald Trump ever said? Why do you believe him? He said in 2016 he was going to build a wall and Mexico was going to pay for it. He said he was going to hire a special prosecutor to go after Hillary Clinton. Why would you believe him?
Well, obviously he makes some ridiculous claims that are so insane that you can't really reason with that.
So,
I'm not disagreeing with.
So why did you believe him? So when he said that, why did you believe him?
I just wanted to have faith, I guess.
All right. Well, listen, Nelson, I'm glad that I finally got you to say that you'd vote for Kamala if the elections were tomorrow. I don't think that's faith, and I'm trying to be respectful here. I think that's stupidity. It's not faith when a guy lies over and over and over and over again, and then he says he's going to do something, and you say, well, I just have faith. No, I don't have faith in people that lie thousands and thousands and thousands of times. Thank you for the call, Nelson. Let's go to Jake. Jake is next on PTL. Hey, Jake, what's going on?
Hey, Brian. How's it going?
What's up, man?
First of all, big kudos for making that mega caller cry earlier.
He really did. I don't think I've ever done that before. Like I've had MAGA callers that have gotten very frustrated with me. They go to ad hominem attacks. I don't think I've ever had a MAGA caller curl up and almost cry. That was very interesting. Should I feel bad about that? I don't really feel bad about that. Should I feel bad?
I'm going to say no.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. Go ahead, my man.
Okay. Yeah. So while you were gone last week, I noticed there was a caller that called in. I think Leonard took his call. He was a self-admitted triple Trumper, voted for Trump all 3 times, and now was saying, "Hey, I made a mistake. The classic. I fell for Donald Trump's lies. I was in the thick of it, and I kind of want to get your response to this, because these people that, as Donald Trump's approval rating gets lower and lower, and all that, I'm not at a place of forgiveness with these people. I just kind of wanted to see how you feel with that, with people that are
it's a good question.
That they made a mistake.
It's a good question. I don't understand. Let me rephrase that. I understand why some people voted for Trump in 2016. I also made a mistake in 2016, and I didn't vote for Hillary either. I didn't understand or realize the monster that Donald Trump would be. I don't understand how anybody could vote for Trump in 2020 after his disaster of a presidency. And then I look to 2024, and I'm really mesmerized. And the only reasons that I could come up with are a few. Number one, which is the main one. You're in his base and in his cult, and you're extremely ill-informed and uneducated. And maybe you're a bigot. Maybe you didn't want to vote for a woman. Maybe you didn't want to vote for a woman of color. And then there's number 2, which I think is more dangerous. You know how dangerous Donald Trump would be, but because you're wealthy, you knew that you would deepen your pockets. And by the way, I know some people that are like that. So those are the only 2 reasons really that I could come up with. If somebody says, Brian, not only did I make a mistake, and we get these calls from time to time, right? Not only did I make a mistake and I shouldn't have voted for Trump 3 times, but I can tell you, Brian, unequivocally, I'm going to vote for a Democrat in 2028, then I can forgive them if, in fact, they're going to do that. But if they say, geez, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have voted for Donald Trump 3 times, but I might vote for J.D. Vance, then I don't accept their apology, right? If they're going to vote for Democrats in the midterms, then okay. All right, I better late than ever. If you're going to vote against a J.D. Vance or a Marco Rubio in 2028, okay, I'll accept your apology because at least you're on the right side right now. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And if, those of us on the left, if we want to make any progress in taking the country back in the right direction, we're going to have to get people back on our side.
Correct.
So
yeah.
I think it's a little bit of a double-edged sword, because I'm not quite where you're at after being called, libtard, soy boy, all these names that the megas have been calling us for years. I'm just not quite ready to accept them yet.
Well, you know what? They can keep calling us those names. I don't wish them ill will, but they lose their health care coverage. They lose their food stamps. They lose their job. I hope it was fun for them to call us names. And by the way, many of those people are still doing that. And quite frankly, they can go to hell as far as I'm concerned. I don't care. They can go to hell. Yeah. Well, thank you, sir. It's a good question you asked, and I really do appreciate that. Thank you. 702-221-7283. Let's go to Cole. Cole is next on PTL. Hello, Cole.
Hey, Brian, great job as usual, man.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
I just wanted to say that, you know what? These megas are so full of it. They are just racist. They didn't want to vote for Kamala because she was a black woman, and they don't want to come out and say that. And we all know it, and we all know why they didn't want to vote for her. And now we're in a big mess because of their racism. So good job calling them out. Thank you.
I do believe a part of the reason why Kamala lost, and I think it was a big reason, is because she's a woman and because she's brown. I'm not gonna sit here and I'm not gonna lie, right? I think that was a big part of why she lost, and it pains me to say this, but I
completely agree, and I just wish that they would, lack of a better term, man up and just admit it.
Well, most of them won't
dance around it, and we all know that they're full of it.
Most of them won't, but I got to tell you, as much as it pains me to say this, it's why you probably shouldn't have a woman running on the Democrat side in 2028. It's not because we don't, right? It's not because we don't want a woman to be president. I think that would be great, but it's because I think there's people that won't vote for a woman because of that reason. And you know what? Put a man up there and let an Ocasio-Cortez type be vice president. I think that would be great.
Yep.
Just like they did with Joe Biden and picked Kamala Harris, which turned out pretty well.
Baby steps. Put
yeah.
your foot in the pool, and
Exactly.
then you know what? Hopefully, the next go around, we can get a strong woman or a strong woman of color or a person of color, and it's just that's unfortunately those are the rules, and we have to play. It's a dirty game, but we have to play by the rules, and I completely agree with you.
Yeah, well, I'm with you, my friend. Cole, thanks for the call, man. I appreciate you.
You bet. Have a great day. Keep up the good work, sir.
Thank you. I appreciate that. All right, a couple more minutes for a few more phone calls. Let's go to John. John is next on PTL. Hey, John, what's up? John hung up the phone. All right, that means we're going to Dave. Dave is next on PTL. Hey, Dave, what's going on, man?
Hey, Brian, thanks for taking my call. You there?
Yeah.
Thanks.
What's up, Dave?
Hey, man, you know something? I need to teach some people some things that you and I know that a lot of people that are calling that don't know anything. First thing, the National Atlantic Treaty Organization is basically for defense. It's to collect defense. Basically, if we are invaded, then the other people that are with us will go against somebody else who invaded us illegally. We're not an offense NATO. We don't go out there and start attacking other countries and expect other countries to help us out, because that's not what the National Treaty Organization is. All right, folks? So that's what it is. So this problem, what I'm trying to make my point is this. The problem is that he wants NATO, even though he has criticized NATO in the past during his election. He doesn't like NATO. For one thing, he basically wants the other countries to get involved in the war so that way he can cut and run. Basically, he wants to cut and run like he did in Venezuela. Remember, he went there, he cut and run. And now he's cut and run in Ukraine. He hasn't helped that either. Now,
that's true.
The other issue is, reason, and that's why the other country says, no, we saw how your actions speak louder than words, that you have cut and run up. He just wants other countries to be left with a bag while he basically leaves. And then on top of that, what I want to make myself clear about the basketball player, another thing, folks, make you open your eyes on, is this. The problem is that when you have a product and you work for me, I don't want you to be working for me, because you know what? They will boycott my product, and the people that I have to pay on payroll, and once they boycott my product, then I have to end up laying off people because somebody said something, because the gay lesbian community basically buy my product. So as far as I'm concerned, that's what happened to Target. Remember Target? They boycotted Target and they lost a lot of money. That's what they'll do to a lot of companies. I don't want other companies to be boycotting because you said a lot of things. And if you work for a company that is not your property, they're going to fire you because they're looking out for their best interest as a company, not because you have a religious problem with the issue. Keep your mouth shut and just keep it to yourself, and you'll have a job. Period.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I don't disagree with you. And I think, obviously you understand freedom of speech and what it pertains to. And there are things that people can say as an employee that can hurt your bottom line. And when you go after an entire group of people, the way this basketball player did, it hurts the Chicago Bulls, So we're obviously in agreement there, my friend Dave. And unfortunately, there's a lot of people. Man. While I still have you on the line, I'm gonna have to put this on social media because I haven't mentioned this guy's name much recently. But
who's that?
Andrew Wilson did a cartoon about me.
Oh my
God. He actually dedicated. It's actually quite funny. He did a cartoon about me. And I'm watching it right now for the first time. It's about 2 minutes, and it's a cartoon of me and him in a boxing ring and him beating me up. I mean, that takes a lot of time to put something like that together. And this guy's like obsessed with me, but it is kind of funny. I will say it is kind of hilarious. The Crucible.
Hey, Brian.
Yeah.
Brian.
Yeah.
Remember the whole saying goes, let me give you something that you might agree on.
Yeah.
Here's the problem. When somebody does, this is what my dad always says. When somebody doesn't talk about you, then you have something to worry about. But when they start talking about you, you know what I'm saying? Then you have something to worry about. So when people don't start talking about you, then you have something to worry about. So now you really don't have nothing to worry about, because you know something? Hey, you know, at least you're out there and they're talking about you in a good way. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you know, whether it's a good way or a bad way, it's not necessarily bad for the show.
No, it's good for the show.
Yeah. So
All right.
you're right. You're right about that. Hey, thanks for the call, Dave. I appreciate
Thanks,
you, man.
Brad.
Thank you.
You too. Bye.
Is there anybody in the YouTube super chat that we missed here? Can you
I
read
got
that one
you.
out?
Just because I want to read this as
Good. Read it.
You're a Simpsons fan, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Best political podcast ever.
Well, that is a very who said that? That's a very
Sir
nice,
Seuss.
That's a very nice compliment. It's also a compliment when the people who hate me take the time out of their day, which takes a lot of time, and make cartoons about me.
We might need to play that.
I'll
on the air
probably play
tomorrow.
that tomorrow. Yeah, it's actually quite funny. I'm watching it right now and living in people's head rent free. It's actually quite funny. I might take 20 seconds out of my day to tweet at somebody and call somebody some names in it. But I certainly don't take time out of my day to put together cartoon work, and living in Andrew Wilson's head rent free is fun. Anyway, thank you for the YouTube super chats. I ask everybody if you can do me all a huge favor. Go on my website, which is pushingthelimits.live. Again, that website is pushingthelimits.live, and make a donation, $5, $10, $20 a month. Listen, whatever you can afford, we greatly appreciate it. That cartoon that Andrew Wilson did about me, I promise you I will play that on the show tomorrow. That's my promise. I will play it because I do think it's quite funny. I'm fighting Myron Gaines. I'm fighting his friend Rob Knorr. It's actually really funny. He's got me wearing the not this cap, but the brown cap that I was wearing. I don't want to give him any free PR, but I will play it tomorrow because I do think it's kind of funny, and how these right wingers are just getting obsessed with me more and more by the day. Thanks for joining us, everybody. I love you guys. Great phone calls today, man. You guys are the best, and we'll see you tomorrow. Have a great day.